on the news, seeking safety from war, but with few options.
He fled his war-torn country, only to fight to survive in New York City. I'm Jessica Easthope with the Ukrainian refugee who says he's not giving up on the American dream.
Plus, dealing with record numbers at the southern border. More and more migrants are attempting to cross into the U.S., and people are feeling overwhelmed. Tackling illegal pot shops in New York, lawmakers in Albany addressed the issue, causing many to wonder if legalizing weed was worth it. Also,
I was shaking because, wow, this is his family.
Finding a personal relic, the teen that traveled almost 4,000 miles to return a World War II memento to a family. I'm Christine Persichetti. Current News starts right now. Missiles in a war-torn country to waves crashing in Coney Island. It's a complicated future for Ukrainians arriving in New York City. Hundreds of thousands who fled to safety in America are now caught in an immigration limbo. Stanislav Holotyuk is one of them. He left his job and family behind in Kyiv as Russian bombs ravaged the city. But now he's struggling to survive thousands of miles away from the war zone. Current News' Jessica Easthope joins us now with his story. Hi, Jess.
Hi, Christine. Stanislav Holotyuk came to New York as part of the Uniting for Ukraine program, a Biden administration initiative that gives Ukrainians temporary protected status in the United States if a sponsor helps them with money. Except Stanislav and thousands of others have never met their sponsors, and Stanislav never intends to. Instead, he's trying to rebuild his life in the United States with nothing and no one.
We just move so that waves won't come to our tent.
Coming from a country taken over by violence and destruction, Stanislav Holotyuk says anything is an upgrade.
It wasn't the worst part.
Even living in a tent under the boardwalk in Coney Island. That's where he spent his first 2 weeks in the United States. He's no longer living here, but he's still wondering if the dream he was sold about a full life in America will ever come true.
After war in Ukraine, actually, everything will be better. But I thought that America could help really more.
Stanislav and more than 117,000 other Ukrainians came under the Biden administration program Uniting for Ukraine. It allows Ukrainians to apply for temporary protected status as long as they have a sponsor giving them financial support. But Stanislav doesn't know his sponsor. He's a person he found on Facebook, a name used to get a ticket into America.
We understood that we will have maybe problems, so it was like an adventure for us.
But Stanislav says this new adventure quickly turned into a wild ride, and he's not on it alone.
They don't know anyone. They try to find out where to find the place and to live and to help to have some like financial support. And we will try to help all of them like this.
Irina Dobnia is the director of Catholic Charities of New York's Ukrainian Response Program. She said most of the Ukrainians her office helps have either never met their sponsor or were left stranded when the financial burden became too much.
The doors of our office are always open for them, but still we need a lot of help to help the people, because we are expecting this year, 2023, still like 15,000 newcomers from Ukraine.
As of this month, 300,000 Ukrainians have arrived in the United States under various programs. That number is higher than all other people from around the world combined admitted into the country's refugee program in the last 5 years. Stanislav said he couldn't stay to see the war play out, or worse, join the fight.
A lot of people think you must be at war. I don't know. I'm not a hero. I'm not a soldier. Heroes, Ukrainian soldiers, they're heroes. I'm not a hero.
Stanislav is a computer programmer by trade. Here, he can't find legal work and has no steady income. And without a credit score, he can't even rent an apartment. But he's not ready to give up.
It would be really cool if I could stay here, but For now, I don't believe that Ukrainians will allowed to stay here, but it's sad.
Irina is waiting for the state-funded USARA program, Ukraine's supplemental appropriation to resettlement agencies, to take off. She says it's a comprehensive and viable path for refugees.
Living in his own rented house and to have a job and to be self-sustained. This is the main aim of USARA.
USARA would be funded by the state's Bureau of Refugee Services, and Christine, unlike Uniting for Ukraine, it would partner with agencies like Catholic Charities and directly help applicants with housing and employment support, and not just financial support, which, as you can see, most of them don't even have to begin with.
Yeah, right. And just this problem doesn't seem like it's going anywhere anytime soon. More of these Ukrainians will be coming to the U.S. under the same program. So why isn't Uniting for Ukraine helping with employment and housing?
15,000, actually. That's how many Ukrainians are expected to still come to the United States in 2023. And Irina said that's the million-dollar question, that not only are most of these people being stranded by their sponsors, but that the program is supposed to be vetting them, and then the program is actually stranding them also. And that, you know, just to give you the scope of how much this has grown, Pew Research did a study on how temporary protected status has grown under the Biden administration and expanded. An estimated 670,000 people from 16 countries are either registered for TPS or newly eligible for it. And in the last 2 years, the Department of Homeland Security added 5 countries to the list of those that qualify for extended TPS. Immigrants with TPS currently live in all 50 states, Washington, D.C., and all U.S. territories. And New York has one of the largest populations of immigrants with TPS.
Wow, so we'll continue to follow the story. Thanks so much, Jess.
Thanks.
Any Ukrainian refugees looking for support can contact Catholic Charities of New York. Just go to cccSNY.org and search for refugee resettlement. Meantime, in Ukraine, Russian forces have reportedly seized a Catholic church there. The Church of the Nativity of the Blessed Virgin Mary is not only a place of worship for a southern Ukrainian city, it's a place where the needy receive support, providing shelter for those who need it. While the seizure has not been officially confirmed, it would seem the church had been empty for a while. The pastor had been transferred somewhere else, and 2 other priests who had been at the parish were kidnapped by Russian militia last November. In his latest bid to stop the war, Pope Francis will receive the Ukrainian Prime Minister on Thursday in what is sure to be a conversation of peace. The last time the Holy Father met with Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal was in March of 2021, when clashes were happening between Ukraine and Russia in the Donbas region. Pope Francis has been outspoken about the war since the invasion began in February of last year, imploring for peace between the two nations and even consecrating them to the Immaculate Heart of Mary in March of 2022. This weekend, the Pope will also see those directly affected by the war. The pontiff will bring a message of hope to Hungary, a country that since the start of the war has seen millions of refugees. Many of those have traveled on to other countries, but about 35,000 have applied for temporary protective status. Like the Pope, Hungary has been supportive of Ukraine, calling for a ceasefire and negotiations to end the war. Be sure to stay tuned to Currents News and the Tablet for continuing coverage of the Pope's trip to Hungary and the war in Ukraine. Also tonight, crisis at the U.S.-Mexico border.
We're all humans, so it takes a toll on agents. You see different people who are fleeing.
Migrants are arriving in record numbers, and the issue is becoming overwhelming. Right now on Currents News, the influx of migrants. The migrant crisis at the U.S.-Mexico border is getting a lot worse before it gets any better. Over 1 million migrants have been arrested this year by Border Patrol agents, which is on pace to break last year's record high of 2.2 million. Natalie Chuck has more from the border, where it's taking a toll on both migrants and agents alike.
This section of the border wall near San Isidro is just one of the many places where these migrants are trying to cross into the country. And a lot of these people, they're not just coming from Mexico, but the majority of them are actually coming from more than 100 different countries. Now, CBP is expecting to break its record for the busiest year at the border.
You are facing a lot of challenges, which I can't mention.
This 25-year-old man recalling the trying journey from his home in Africa here. The border wall between Mexico and San Diego County.
We're all humans, So it takes a toll on agents. You see different people who are fleeing, be it war in their country or they're looking to make a better life for their family.
Agents with the San Diego Sector Border Patrol hear stories like this day after day as an influx of migrants try to cross into the United States. Our cameras captured this just days after Border Patrol says it had officially encountered more than 100,000 migrants in roughly 6 months.
When you talk to people here within our own city, they don't realize that they sit right on the border, one of the busiest areas along the border, actually.
And while Border Patrol says these migrants from distant countries aren't typically the ones smuggling, the agency has already seized more than 800 pounds of fentanyl this fiscal year. All of this coming on the heels of Title 42 being lifted, a COVID-era policy expelling migrants after they are processed as a matter of public health. It's something that immigration advocates have been opposed to from the beginning.
We have been using COVID-19 as an excuse to violate human rights, right, by closing asylum.
More than likely, we are expecting an increase. We're not sure how many or what kind of increase or percentage-wise, but we are preparing.
But when it comes to a solution for not only Border Patrol, but the people on the other side of this wall,
that's left, of course, in the hands of the leaders of our country, Congress. We just enforce the laws that Congress puts ahead of us.
That was Natalie Chuck reporting. On Monday, House Republicans revealed a new security bill to address the U.S.-Mexico border. Some of the key points of it is to extend the border wall for 900 miles and provide more resources to Border Patrol agents. Other policy changes on the border are taking center stage, such as the expiration of Title 42, which will end on May 11th, with church leaders asking lawmakers to address the main issue of the crisis. Bishop Mark Seitz from the Diocese of El Paso said, quote, immigration will not be fixed by simply stopping people or sending them back. Immigration issues will be allowed to become a more orderly, normal human process if we deal with the root causes of them in the sending countries. A big win in the abortion battle. North Dakota is banning nearly all abortions in the state. Republican Governor Doug Burgum signed legislation banning the act throughout a woman's pregnancy, with few exceptions within the first 6 weeks. Those cases are rape, incest, or medical emergency. Burgum said the move, quote, reaffirms North Dakota as a pro-life state. One organization that's cheering the move is the North Dakota Catholic Conference. It released a statement saying, quote, the law unifies, clarifies, and strengthens North Dakota's abortion laws. It is the result of months of work involving legislators, public officials, pro-life organizations, and the state's healthcare organizations. We are mindful that banning abortion is not enough. Everyone, including the state government, must respond with love so that women and families receive the support and care needed so that abortion becomes unthinkable. President Biden has announced his re-election bid. The commander-in-chief throwing his hat into the 2024 race, saying the battle for the nation's soul isn't complete. Ivan Rodriguez reports on some of the battles Biden faces as he goes forward.
When I ran for president 4 years ago, I said we're in a battle for the soul of America, and we still are.
Tuesday morning, President Joe Biden launched his bid for re-election 4 years to the day he made his 2020 bid. In that presidential race, Biden's mission was to restore the country's character and prevent Trump from securing a second term. This time around, Biden says his work isn't finished.
The question we're facing is whether in the years ahead we have more freedom or less freedom, more rights or fewer.
The Republican National Committee quickly responding with an AI-generated video of imagined scenarios.
We can now call the 2024 presidential race for Joe Biden.
The president enters the race with a significant legislative record but low approval ratings. An NBC News poll conducted before Biden's announcement finds just 26% of Americans think Biden should run for a second term, and nearly half of those people who oppose a Biden run say his age is a major reason.
I think we should remember, we didn't think he could pull it off 4 years ago, and look what he's done.
Thank you.
Speaking at a union event, the president highlighted his work the last 4 years.
Finish the job. We just remember who we are. We are the United States of America.
As of now, Biden's advisors say the president does not intend to hold re-election campaign rallies until Republicans have a presumptive nominee. What Biden could begin sooner is a heavier schedule of fundraising. Ivan Rodriguez, Currents News.
There's a lot more news headed your way. Hundreds of illegal pot shops are popping up across the city, with New York lawmakers taking action.
Legalization of marijuana was never going to eliminate the illicit sales or the black market.
I speak to an addiction expert who breaks down the fight against weed and why he says the drug is dangerous. Plus, a family heirloom thought to be lost forever. We'll tell you the story behind this bracelet and where it was found.
Holy Week in the Diocese of Brooklyn. Currents News was there to cover it all. From the Palm Sunday procession.
About 100 Catholics took to the streets of Brooklyn.
To the Chrism Mass.
Currents News' Jessica Easthope is in the thick of it all.
There are some priests here celebrating their 65th anniversary of ordination.
The conclusion of the first Lenten pilgrimage.
Bishop Brennan joined pilgrims for a majority of the journey.
Holy Thursday and the Way of the Cross on Good Friday.
The Way of the Cross is making its way over the Brooklyn Bridge.
Plus, powerful testimonies from new Catholics.
I'm blessed to be able to wake up every morning.
And a message of hope from Bishop Brennan.
Christ is alive.
Currents News is there. Happy Easter.
New York State lawmakers are trying to figure out what to do about an onslaught of illicit weed joints. The talks are part of the state budget as Albany hopes to figure out a final deal on the governor's proposed $227 billion spending plan by Friday. Some 1,500 black market shops are operating in New York City's 5 boroughs. Joining us now to dive deeper into the issue of these illegal weed shops across the city is David Gerber, who founded Sober at Home, an online counseling company that helps people suffering from addiction. Hi, David.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. David, I know you're a big opponent of legalized pot. Why is that?
Well, the reality is that the marijuana that's being consumed today is not your parents' and grandparents' marijuana. The marijuana that's consumed today, the THC levels, that's the substance that gets you the euphoric effect, is over 90%. Back in the 60s and 70s, that THC level was 1 to 5%. So it's like the difference between taking a sip of wine at a party and chugging tequila. It's not the same old natural plant that people are talking about.
Wow. Some of the arguments for legalizing the drug were that it would create jobs and it would create sales tax revenue to be reinvested in minority communities. But now some 1,500 illegal shops have opened up. What has that meant for the problem of addiction?
Well, one of the things that we could have predicted was that legalization of marijuana was never going to eliminate the illicit sales or the black market. Currently, you referenced 1,500, but some estimates are that there are as many as 5,000 illegal shops. That means that roughly 90% of the marijuana being purchased today in New York City is purchased illegally. In California, the illicit marijuana sales remain at about 80%. The tax revenue that we're going to be able to generate is not going to compare to the costs to dealing with the legalization. For every dollar that we generate in tax revenue, we will be spending $4.50 trying to counteract the impact of legalization.
Well, you know, some also worry that if you buy from an unlicensed vendor, the weed could be laced with something more dangerous than fentanyl. We're all hearing those stories. Does that concern you?
Yes, absolutely. And if there's one great case for legalization, if you want to go in that direction, it's that the vast supply of illicit drugs from marijuana to heroin are tainted with deadly drugs like fentanyl. But that doesn't make marijuana safe. And the fact of the matter is that you are 2 to 3 times more likely to be involved in a car crash when under the influence of marijuana. And because marijuana stays in your system much longer, your cognitive impairment and ability to drive is impacted long after you've smoked.
Wow. And when you think back to the pandemic, when we're talking about these illegal shops, the city handed out fines and did thousands of inspections to make sure businesses were following vaccine mandates, yet the illegal weed shops continue to operate. Why do you think the city hasn't been able to shut down these shops?
Well, there's a number of reasons why. First, there's so many. When I say up to 5,000 shops, 3 to 4 legal dispensaries in New York City to 5,000 smoke shops that are selling marijuana illegally. Many of these companies, many of these bodegas and grocery stores that are selling these illegally, they're cash businesses. They're owned by people out of country, and it's very difficult to police, to inspect, to regulate, and the Office of Cannabis Management only has 150 employees. So the ability to think that we're going to be able to put a hold on this, to put a stop to this, it's not going to be anytime soon.
It's an issue we'll continue to cover. David Gerber, founder of the online addiction counseling company Sober at Home, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
If you or someone you know is struggling with addiction, you can visit David's site for help. That's at soberathomeinc.com. Still to come on Currents News, a teen finds a long-lost family treasure with a metal detector. The history and the long journey home for this lost soldier's bracelet.
Franks, rice, and beans.
It's a recipe for a faith-filled mission. The parishioner at Our Lady of Grace who cooks for the homeless every week.
It makes me feel good when I come down and I can do something to help out other people, which is what Jesus really wants us to do. He wants to help out other people.
Pat Fleming makes up the pulse of the parish, Thursday on Currents News. A teenager in Italy stumbled across a piece of history in his local forest when he found a bracelet belonging to a soldier during World War II. Now this long-lost heirloom is home, all because of his determination.
Beyond what you find, there's always a history.
And with that history is always a story.
I was interested in seeing who was this person.
19-year-old Gabriel Pavoltoni was metal detecting in the woods near his home in Pisa, Italy, when he heard the noise every metal detector user waits for.
And then my metal detector started bing, 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 bing.
He started digging when something shiny caught his eye.
So I pulled it out from the ground, I put it in my hand, and I saw, okay, this is a bracelet.
A silver bracelet with a World War II soldier's name engraved on the front, the date 1943, and another name on the back.
And I saw L.T. Ernest A. Holtzclaw.
Gabriel knew he wanted to return it to the family of Captain Ernest Holtzclaw, a member of the U.S. Army's 34th Infantry Division. The bracelet was probably left behind when the U.S. fought against Italy's dictator Benito Mussolini during World War II around 1943.
I found his grave in Boston.
He and his mom hopped on a plane heading to Massachusetts with an important mission that would bring him to a small suburb in Boston. That's when he met someone who would help in the final stretch of his search.
I noticed them kind of walking around aimlessly, not set at any one grave.
Jim Colleen and another man who works at the cemetery helped Gabriel track down the grave and the family's home.
We went for a ride, just 3 miles away from here.
And when they got to the house, the soldier's family, stunned and in awe, were returned the bracelet of Captain Ernest Holtzclaw, a World War II American soldier.
I was shaking because, wow, this is his family.
An amazing story. Between 1942 and 1945, about 16 million Americans served in World War II around the time that bracelet was lost. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.